my voice. So pretend the cloud is the phone, and God's voice echoes through it. That's pretty much what God did. See, God has some awesome technology. During the Millennium Kingdom, we might have clouds. Just reach up, grab one, call somebody. Yeah, right? Who knows? And the verse that you use to point to the contradiction is, but he said, you cannot see my face, for no man can see me and live, which is in Exodus 33:20. So, Exodus 33:9, Exodus 33:20. It's just 10 verses later where the writer goes as far as to emphasize that you cannot actually see my face. You'd have to be really, really dumb to have that and actually meaning that Moses saw the face of God when he spoke to him in the cloud at the tent, the entrance of the tabernacle. You'd have to be really, really dumb. And I don't accept that. That's even a possibility. Because do you know how much atheists and historians or whatever scrutinize the Bible looking for anything they can point out as a contradiction? They work too hard at it for this one just to be handed to them as if that's really what it was. It's in the same chapter. It goes and re-emphasizes that you cannot see my face. But you look back at the verse and it is not mentioned that Moses saw the face of God. It was giving reference to how he was speaking to him. It's the manner of speech, not the physicality. That's where the difference lies. So that entire contradiction is pretty much, you have to want to see a contradiction in that in order for there to be a contradiction in that. And it's just the way that one is. All right, going on to Malachi 3:6, and everyone's heard this at some point in their life. It reads, for I, the Lord, do not change, therefore you, O sons of Jacob, are not consumed. What does consumed mean? Perish. What does that verse mean? Want to take a guess? No? Okay. For I, the Lord, change not. Which means when he first created everything, he placed the man and woman in the garden, and they sinned. Did he punish them? Yes. Did he destroy them? No. Could he have? Oh, yeah. He could have just done with those two and started over again. It would have been nothing. He could have said, let it be. Poof, poof. Start over again. But guess what? It would have happened again. It really would have. Now, granted, Adam did not have a sin nature, but when the serpent was banished to the garden, he kind of brought it with him, unfortunately. Which is where some atheists will point out that God set Adam up for failure. Because if he had never put the serpent in the garden, they never would have eaten from the tree. Are you sure about that? How do you know that? Maybe they would have. Maybe they would have got tired after a couple thousand years of eating all the fruit instead of that one that just looked good. They might have still done it anyway. So anyway, the whole point was that God does not change. Why didn't God destroy them? Love, grace, mercy. If God sees all things, that means every single day he sees every murder that is committed, every child that is molested, every woman that is raped, every family that is destroyed. He sees everything. But because God does not change, we are not consumed. Now, God does warn that in the end, his wrath will come, will be unleashed. But we have a warning of it. Does that mean God's changed? No. He won't change then either. Right now, he's bottling it up. The anger of watching his creation, his children, destroy, mutilate, torture, kill each other. He's keeping it in check. How many if let's say you had 1,000 children, how many of them could you watch just be butchered and murdered before you lost your mind? He's been doing it for 8,000 years. I think he's doing pretty good. Okay, well, actually, he did wipe them all out and start over with Noah. And, he started over before. But since the flood, he pretty much has not wiped out the whole world. which he said he would never do with the flood, but he did say he wouldn't do it. So he really could. And he wouldn't be violating his own word. He just couldn't use a flood to do it. He could smack a meteor into us just big enough that destroys everything on the surface if he wanted to. So he could. Just goes to show that God has a lot of restraint. So ultimately, the main point of this verse is God does not change, which means the love, mercy, and grace, and everything that he has within him is not going to go away. It's not going nowhere. And it's going to keep us from being destroyed. And I would say that is a blessing in and of itself. It still does not mean he can't change his mind. Doesn't mean that at all. To change and to change your mind are two very different concepts, aren't they? Some disagree. All they see is the letters C-H-A-N-G-E. One says he did, one says he didn't. Contradiction. That's it. That's all they see. They're looking for a word. You change some letters before, do not, will not, and then when he did, and they say it's the same thing, it's a contradiction. No. For example, if I feel like I would look good in pink pants, I think so. I should. If I thought I looked good in pink pants, and then after a year or so of rocking my pink pants, fuchsia, I decide I don't like good in pink anymore, and I stop wearing them. Did I change? But did I change the person I am, who I am? Did I change? No. My opinion of the color of pants I should wear changed. That's all that changed. What changes us? Well, my marriage changed me. My deployment changed me. The Bible's changed me. There's a lot of things that have changed me and who I am. But that doesn't mean I can't change my mind about something. I used to be pro-death penalty. I changed my mind on it because Christina made a point that I could not refute. Taking a life has been taken off the table. Christ removed that right to execute anybody, even justifiably. The eye for an eye, it's gone. It doesn't apply anymore. We're not under the Abrahamic law. We're not under the Mosaic law. That's just the way it is. There's things that are no longer valid. And once it was shown to me, I changed my mind, but it didn't change me. So this verse is talking about God does not change. It doesn't mean he can't change his mind about how he's going to do something. It doesn't mean he can't change his method on how he's going to do something. Back in the day, the only way to do something sometimes was for him to give an annihilation order. Wipe out the Amalekites. Because if you don't take out the weed at the root, it's going to come back. And every time those instructions were not followed, that's exactly what happened. It might have taken a couple 100 years or so, or 10, 20, 30, who knows, I don't know how long. It might have taken some time. But it always came back to cost the Israelites greatly. And when they did, they didn't have any more problems from that people. They're gone. There's a price for obedience and a price for disobedience. But one is a reward and one is a consequence. So God does not change. He himself, who he is, the things that make him God, doesn't change. But his methods can. Because see, since Christ died, Christ took away the whole right to life thing. Okay? Every life is his now. He's responsible for it. He will either cover it or he won't. Okay? There has not been a kill order or whatever since Christ. Long before Christ, actually, but there has not been a prophet that spoke for God as, thus saith the Lord. There has not been a wipe out these people. People say, well, Hitler was a Catholic. So, some Catholics are Christians. A lot of Catholics aren't Christians. They're religious folk. They do it because they grew up doing it. A lot of Marines are Marines. Because they wanted to be? No, because their parents, their dad was, and their granddad, and their great-grandfather, and their great-great-grandfather, and great-great-great-grandfather. That's called tradition. That's not, you didn't do it because you wanted to. You did it because every man before you did it. Catholicism, pretty much the same way. That is true indoctrination. You grow up and you have to do all these things when you're this age and and you're sprinkled and yada, yada, yada. Nothing against Catholicism. It serves for a really good example. There are plenty of religions out there that meet the exact same criteria. That doesn't make them Christian. Just because they basically stemmed from God does not change the fact that doesn't mean they necessarily worship God himself. You can go up to church every single Sunday for 20 years. You go to seminary, graduate from seminary, get hired as a pastor somewhere. Does that make you a Christian? No. Might make you religious. You can regurgitate everything you were told. Doesn't make you a Christian. Not by a long shot. Repentance in your heart. Service to God. That's pretty much... You know what makes you a Christian? It's real simple. This is the most simple definition of a Christian. Okay? Indwelling of the Spirit. That's what makes you a Christian. Can I see the Spirit in you? As a human? Robbie? Can I see the Spirit of God in you? Can I see the Spirit of God in you? Tyler, can I see the Spirit of God in you? I don't have that ability to see that. So ultimately, who's a Christian and who knows who's a Christian? God and God alone. God judges the heart. He's the only one who truly knows who a Christian is. Now, the Bible says we should know a Christian by their fruits. Okay? But does that mean you can tell definitively by the things they do that they are? No. The determination is not meant to be left up to us. But you know what? I can tell you who's not. Pedophiles are not Christians. Murderers are not Christians. Thieves, robbers, adulterers. Because if you really love God, really, you would not do those things. Does that mean you won't slip? No, that's not what that means. But murdering someone isn't a slip-up. Cheating on your wife isn't a slip-up. Molesting your children isn't a slip-up. These things don't just, oops, my bad. Oh, I shot the guy. Well, they had it coming. Sorry, God. No. That's not how it works. Christians are known by their fruit, and people who are not Christians are known by their fruit. Some of those we may not be able to tell. Some people might look like they're Christians. Most of them aren't. And their numbers, quite honestly, are dwindling. Fast. Britain now has less than 30% of their entire population claimed to be any sort of Christian in any way, shape, or form. Predominantly Anglican there, but less than 30% of the population. We at least have 70% that say they are, not by their actions, but by their mouth. So, I mean, we know our percentage is not 70 nothing. If it's over 20, I'd really be surprised, but still, it is what it is. All right. Now, this is the one that I had to add. The lineage of Jesus. And there's a little fun fact here I'll give you guys. But again, we're focusing, yes, Rahab, but we're focusing on what assumed contradictions. Now, if you actually read the entire lineage of Jesus, it appears twice in the Bible, once in Matthew, once in Luke, okay? And if you read them, they're not the same. So atheists will be like, that's a contradiction. It's two different lineages. Okay? Off the top of your head, how would you account for that? No. How many parents did he have? Biological. But how many parents did he have? He had two. Joseph was his stepdad. Wasn't his biological father. Joseph was his stepdad. Well, no, just he had two parents, though. He didn't grow up with one parent. He grew up with two parents. His whole life. At no point was he just one. He had two. So how many genealogies does he have? Two. Right? I mean, really? It should make some sense. Now, here's a cool thing I learned from Pastor John MacArthur.